Now, last night, in an excellent interview with our very own Bev Turner, Donald Trump told some home truths that many on the left don't really want to hear. And all of that was after the BBC doctored this clip.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and I'll be there with you, and we fight. We fight like hell. We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women.
Yeah, but it turns out, surprise, surprise, that it wasn't the first time they'd done this sort of thing either. In fact, they did something pretty similar a few years before on Newsnight in 2022. The doctored clip was actually called out by Nick Mulvaney.
Your video actually spliced together the presentation. He said, we're going to go down and we're going to cheer on our senators and our House members. And then it actually goes on to say, in some of them we might not be able to. And that line about it, we fight and fight like hell, is actually later in the speech. And yet your video makes it look like those two things came together.
Now, Mick left the Trump administration after the riots and was actually a Trump critic. Now, this second edit was only highlighted after the Panorama edit was called out. Donald Trump was not happy. Who would be if their words had been manipulated in this manner? He actually told people to march, and he used the words peacefully. But some are suffering from TDS, Trump derangement syndrome, and simply cannot accept the outrage.
BBC isn't perfect, and we've had our criticisms, but it is the one institution that's protecting British values from a full Trump takeover, and as that very precious institution, Liberal Democrats will defend it.
Great British institution is under attack from a foreign government. President Trump is trying to destroy our BBC, not because he cares about the truth, but because he doesn't want to get away with his lies. Trump has undermined press freedom in America. Now he's trying to do the same here, disgracefully egged on by the leader of Reform. So will the Prime Minister tell President Trump to drop his demand for $1 billion settlement from the BBC? And will he guarantee that President Trump will not get a single penny from British licence fee payers?
On climate change, Donald Trump said this.
They talk about the climate. The whole thing is a hoax. They used to say it was started by other countries to cause problems. And they used to call it global warming, but that didn't work because it started getting colder. They even called it many years ago global cooling, but those things don't work. So now they call it climate change, because with climate change you can't lose. The whole thing is a hoax. And your country, among others, but your country is one of the worst. You talk about UK, it's one of the worst in the world. They believe this nonsense, this fiction. As an example, China, very smart. They sell the windmills, almost all of them. It used to be Germany and China, now it's mostly China. And yet, if you go around China, you see almost no wind farms. So they make the windmills and they sell it to the suckers, the stupid people. But they don't have them themselves. They use oil and gas, they use coal, but they don't use the wind.
Yeah, he's right, isn't he? I mean, why would you pay a fortune for windmills which are imported that last 10 years and end up in landfill after they've killed a load of wildlife and spent a lot of their time being paid not to operate?
I'm so saddened to see what happened in Europe with the immigration. I think above all else the immigration, but the bad taxing policies. Your immigration is going to destroy you. If you get people from the wrong people, in our case, we had people coming in from jails, from mental institutions, from the drug dealers, and some of the worst scum. And we're getting them out, and we've got a lot of them out. If you look at some of our cities that we've sent the military in to correct, Washington, D.C. was very unsafe, and now it's the safest place in the country. It took me 2 months to make it good, less actually, but 2 months to make it really good now. Everyone's having dinners there. We have these beautiful, nice military guys all over the place. And they look good. To me they look good because it means safety. But we took out 1,700 career criminals and criminals from other countries that came in like they come into your country. And Europe has to do something about it.
So there's his thoughts on immigration. He's right again. He solved the problem. Why aren't we bringing in the military? Love him or hate him, Donald Trump did not deserve what, in my view, is a deliberately misleading edit. If his speech was as bad as they say, why didn't they leave it alone and let it speak for itself?
Not long ago, I introduced Claude Note, a powerful AI-enabled meeting assistant, and today we're excited to have in hand Claude's latest upgraded version. Is this a platinum credit card? Nope. It's Claude Note Pro, your updated AI-powered meeting assistant. With 4 built-in microphones, Claude Note captures everything and records crystal clear audio up to 5 meters away. But it's more than a recorder. Take photos, jot ideas, mark highlights, and during key discussions, if I press the button just right here, it instantly saves 30 seconds of key audio as a highlight. I never miss important details. And you've got 50 hours non-stop recording on Note Pro, or 60 hours on standby. There's a smart display showing battery life, recording status, and file transfers, so you always know what's going on. Then Claude turns it into structured notes, summaries, insights, to-dos, even analysis of power dynamics in the room. And with Ask Claude, your contextual AI assistant, you can draft emails, extract data, brainstorm, or find anything across past meetings. And you're safe knowing that your data is yours and completely private. Click the link in the video description to pre-order your Claude Note Pro. And if you'd like to experience Claude Intelligence even earlier, I've got a special offer for you. Use the code GB20 when ordering Claude Note and get 20% off.
So I'm joined now by political commentator Fahima Mohammed. Fahima. Right, it's Fahima. Now, so what are your thoughts on this? Now, the BBC, obviously, what they did was a doctored edit. Surely this cannot be excused.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, when it comes to the BBC, saying that that it's corrupt to the core is not necessarily true, because when it comes to it, we know for generations the BBC has trained journalists and it's been operating since 1922, and it's set a tone for political interviewing. It has held its hand up, and even senior chief staff have actually, resigned over this. So I think, the 5 billion lawsuit would drain, the kind of everyday license fee money paid by ordinary British families. And Trump is putting our wallets at risk over his grievance.
Well, I would say the BBC have put our wallets at risk. I wouldn't blame him for that, because had they done something as egregious to someone like me or you, I would 100% sue them, because I would think, you're not doing that to me, because that could damage my reputation and ruin me completely. So it's them. I just hear people say that, but I just want to remind you, it's they who have put our money at risk by being so irresponsible.
I understand that, but when it comes to Trump's reputation, again, it hasn't really gone completely far off from what was said, even if it was wrongly done. And like I said, they have held up, apologized. And, newsroom fear means fewer investigations into UK corporate fraud, political corruption, and financial misconduct. So costing the public billions in the long run, regardless, even if it was the BBC's fault or not. They actually will be undermining trust in British media, hurting.
But you can't. But I don't think you could just describe, regardless of whether it's their fault or not. No, this was their fault. It's very important, because it tarnishes the name of the BBC. Well, no, I know that. Well, I know that. We know that. We know that.
British people, and it's also the jobs that are there. And there's so many journalists, as you know, you've worked there. You probably still have.
Yeah, I was trained by them never to do what they just did there. They taught me never to do that. Yeah,
I understand. But as I really do think that the UK's proud tradition of independent journalism, does not just serve by Trump's demand for loyalty over truth, because at the end of the day, he imports an American-style hostility to institutions that damages the cultural fabric that keeps Britain stable and informed.
Like what?
If we attack
Give me an
BBC,
example of this. This thing you've just explained.
He definitely, attacked his own institutions and sort of broadcasting in his own country.
What,
he needs
CNN?
To also protect his own house when it comes to, resolving and solving problems, and having, Britain, a sovereign country, to deal with its own problems. And, I don't think that this kind of sort of suit is actually going to cause anything but only havoc to the British public.
Well, look, I mean, at the end of the day, the BBC must be more responsible. They can't be that frivolous with our money and create programmes that are ultimately, they can't lie in programmes, which to me, changing the meaning of an edit in that manner is not really telling the truth, is it? And journalism is about truth. So if they can't do that, then that is the deal that we strike with them. If you tell us the truth, then I'm OK to pay a certain level for the licence, but I do believe it's got too big and too powerful, and it's becoming some sort of indoctrinatory device, which I think is unacceptable. But let's talk about climate change then. The climate hoax is what Donald Trump calls it. He makes a point about the windmills. They are expensive. We buy the parts from China. China are burning coal and gas like there's no tomorrow. They don't have their own coal and gas, so they're buying it from Russia and wherever. It seems a bit... He's right, it's a hoax, isn't it?
Well, I think in this interview, it was soaked in fear from migrants as the worst scum, London as Sharia law zone, and climate science as a hoax, and the public broadcaster smeared as corrupt. And for one bad edit, they've already apologized for. And I think the leadership is constantly telling you to be scared of your neighbor and, your city and your media. And that's not patriotism, it's division. And I do think that he mixes a few real issues with a lot of wild exaggerations. Yes, of course. And then he jumps into kind of like, this hoax. When it comes to climate change, it's not really a hoax. It's the North Sea having 1,000 years of oil. That's what he says. And then that's not common sense. That's distortion. Britain needs serious solutions, not imported American fear politics.
Well, we don't know how much oil exactly is in the North Sea, but it was one of our biggest resources. He doesn't know either. So, but it was one of our biggest resources that we would sell abroad and make quite a bit of money out of. So by shutting it all down or making sure that we don't drill anymore and then importing everything from everywhere else, so actually it's a bigger carbon footprint, just doesn't seem very intelligent to me. And so it sounds like some people are making a lot of money out of this and it's not us. So I'm wondering, so I think he has got a point. Do you not think he's got a point about the wind turbines? They only last 10 years. All the components are bought in China and we offset our emissions to China. So we're not really, it's one atmosphere. So everything that goes off into the atmosphere still goes into the atmosphere. So it's not really saving CO2 at all, is it?
Well, NASA and the IPCC and virtually every major scientific body say that it's unequivocal that humans are warming the planet through greenhouse gas emissions. The cost of wind versus fossil fuels as well. The onshore wind is now one of the cheapest sources of new electricity globally. So, it's like 0.34 kilowatt cheaper than average than a new fossil fuel plants. And in the UK, analysis shows wind power has cut wholesale prices by up to 25% and saved consumers tens of billions by displacing expensive taxes.
But it is subsidised, and we also pay hundreds of thousands of pounds to have the turbines switched off when it's too windy because we can't store the energy. So, I'm wondering if that's factored in the cost of actually creating them, how long they last, and also what I'm talking about more is the carbon footprint of them. And if we're trying to save the environment and release less CO2 into it, then importing these turbines from other countries and transporting them to us using oil and gas, because that's how they get there, when they only last 10 years, isn't really saving the planet at all, because the carbon is going into the atmosphere and we are one planet. If the carbon goes over there, it's still in here. If you see what I mean? That's my point.
I get that too. And again, I do feel that his calling climate science a hoax, while his own energy claims are the ones that collapses on contact with data, and wind isn't bankrupting Britain. Dependency on volatile gas prices is. We've seen so much of these kind of angles, and there is serious debate about how fast a transition off oil, but it's not helped by pretending that the North Sea is an infinite money tree that magically solves bills, climate and energy security all at once.
All right, and very briefly, his stance on immigration. He's done it. You've got about a minute for Hema. What are your thoughts on that? He managed to stop the immigration, the illegal migration. He said it's down to zero.
Well, crossings really have collapsed compared to 2021 to 23 crisis. But again, overall, you can see the dramatic reduction, even if his wording is 0 to 6 months. It's not literally accurate. And we don't know how long this is going to be. We've seen 7 million people across the state against ICE and how they have been operating. And there's been a lot of comfort for the way in which the Americans are actually, performing right now. So I think, Donald Trump needs to really, worry about his own house and forget the BBC and the UK and worry about his own, because it's not necessarily the way it seems on the outside. He's got a lot of people, even in his own party, against him right now, which wasn't before. So again, I think, it's really dangerous for him the way he's moving.
All right, Fahima Mohammed, thank you so much for your thoughts. He's a political commentator.